Ban Ki-moon, the former Secretary General of the United Nations, once said, "To measure the success of our societies, we should examine how well those with different abilities, including persons with autism, are integrated as full and valued members." Ever since I became friends with a young nonverbal autistic boy, I've researched therapy techniques designed to help kids with autism. There are 3 therapy techniques that I've found that have been proven to significantly help kids with autism: applied behavior analysis, occupational therapy, and sensory integration therapy. The first therapy technique I'd like to discuss is applied behavior analysis, also known as ABA. In simple terms, ABA takes big tasks and breaks them down into more manageable steps. This chart from the A in Culture, a toolbox to drive positive food safety behaviors, written by Bertrand Emmond, Julia Bradshaw, and Laura Nelson in Food Safety Magazine in October of 2018, is especially helpful when discussing this topic. An antecedent is essentially an action or direction that is used to tell the child what's expected of them. The behavior is the child's reaction to the antecedent. The consequence is what happens as a result of the behavior, and the feedback is how the behavior changes from one incident to the next. Let's use an example. Let's say that a therapist wants their patient to verbally ask for something. So, the therapist grabs a big bowl of candy. They tell the child, "Okay, if you want some candy, you're going to have to verbally ask me for it." That is the antecedent. The behavior could be that the child instead points to the bowl of candy. The consequence is that the child doesn't get any candy. The feedback is that the next time, the child is more likely to verbally ask. The next therapy technique I'd like to talk about is occupational therapy. Occupational therapists help patients improve fine motor skills, as well as adapt the patient's environment to better fit their needs. This is especially helpful when working with autistic children. According to Dr. Lisa Crabtree and Barbara B. Demchek in the article Occupational Therapy's Role with Autism, written in 2018 and found on the American Occupational Therapy Association's website, OTs, quote, "prioritize individual self-determination to encourage the development of self-advocacy skills," end quote. What an OT does can be summed up in the occupational adaptation theory. Let's go through it together. The person wants to master a task, and society demands that the task be mastered. This creates a press for mastery. The person's ability, their system, and the environment affect how hard the challenge is to complete, as well as society's expectations for that challenge. The person's ability to complete the task is the occupational response. The OT and person each evaluate the outcome. The OT changes the environment to better fit the person's needs, and the person adjusts their response for next time. That's called the general adaptive response. The final therapy technique I'd like to discuss is sensory integration therapy. Children with autism often have trouble processing sensory information. Loud noises, bright lights, and even certain textures can be overwhelming for these kids. According to the article, Study Finds Sensory Integration Therapy Benefits Children with Autism, which was posted on the Autism Speaks website on December 3, 2013 with no author. This type of therapy can be extremely beneficial in helping kids with autism become less sensitive to stimuli. Sensory integration therapy, quote, uses play activities and ways designed to change how the brain reacts to touch, sound, sight, and movement, end quote. These activities can be anything from being in a ball pit to walking along a balance beam. It may look like the child is playing, but in reality, they're becoming more accustomed to everyday stimuli. While this type of therapy may not seem as scientific or glamorous as the other two we've discussed today, it's just as important and effective in the treatment of autism. To paraphrase Ban Ki-moon, the success of our world can be determined by how willing we are to share it with those who have disabilities. I've shared 3 techniques with you today: applied behavior analysis, occupational therapy, and sensory integration therapy. With these therapy techniques, I believe that we may be able to make our world a little more successful.